Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're having a great day so far and welcome to today's video, which is going to be my long-awaited top 3 in every makeup category. I do this once a year. It causes me agony every time. I agonize over my choices, but I'm finally in a place where I feel happy with my top 3s and I'm ready to share them with you. So if you want to know what my top 3 foundations, primers, eyeshadow palettes, lipsticks, lip liners, eyeliners, you get the idea. Everything, it's all in here. So let's get started, shall we? Okay, so I did do a poll on my community page asking you guys what you wanted from me. What do you want from me? Do you want me to include limited edition but gone or discontinued products? Because there's certain categories where they're rife, okay? And I don't want to hurt your feelings. I don't want to cause you pain by blathering on about products that you can't get, that are nowhere to be found any longer. So I asked you guys what you wanted me to do about discontinued products that may have featured in my top 3, and you guys overwhelmingly, it wasn't even close, you wanted me to mention my actual top 3 as they are, but where something is discontinued, perhaps provide a 4th place that is still available, or make sure at least a couple of the 3 that I've chosen are available. So that's what I've done. Where there's a product in my top 3 that you cannot get anymore, I will give you my 4th place, if that makes sense. Now, I won't be ranking my top 3s, but if there is like a standout first place, there isn't always. I know people are often saying, what is your absolute number 1? I don't always have a clear number 1. Sometimes I like several products equally, but where there is a standout winner in the category, I will also let you know that as well. Now we're going in sort of makeup order. So kicking us off, it's primers. And this is a category which I'm proud of. Okay, I won't lie to you, I'm pretty proud of this category because not only are all 3 of these primers readily available permanent products, but they each offer something quite different. So I feel like there's something for everybody here. Now, as you guys know, my holy grail is the Tom Ford Soft Matte Primer. Without question, this is my favorite primer. I use this 99.99% of the time when I'm doing a full face of makeup. It's exceptionally smoothing. That's what I love about it most. It gives me a very smooth canvas for foundation. It gives me that extra bit of evening out of texture, of fine lines, wrinkles, crepiness, all of that. Very, very flattering and smoothing, and therefore foundations go on beautifully on top of it, again with that beautiful smoothing quality. It also helps foundations to last longer. I need less foundation when I'm using this. It's an all-around absolute belter of a primer. This is maybe my 3rd bottle and I can't be without it. Next up, same brand, Tom Ford Shade and Illuminate Soft Radiance Primer. And this one was really surprising for me when I first tried this, because any sort of radiance primer, I expect to sacrifice some smoothing. So typically I'm sort of choosing between smoothness and glow. Typically when it comes to foundations or primers, they don't do both excellently. You kind of have to pick which one to prioritize. This one actually is very smoothing at the same time. It's a very thin sort of watery texture and the glow is quite understated. It's nothing like the Charlotte Tilbury Hollywood Flawless filter, for example, or the Dior Star filter. It doesn't have shimmer or sparkle, it's just a little bit of glow. So it's much more forgiving as far as texture. It doesn't add a lot of texture, it just adds a little bit of soft, like the same amount you get from doing a really good moisturizer. It gives you hydration, freshness to the skin, but it's still super smoothing and foundations go beautifully on top of it. It does have the stunning glass bottle that goes with the Shade and Illuminate range. And for everyday, it's pretty much the only other primer that I use if I'm not using my soft matte. I do prefer the soft matte because most of my foundations are glowy anyway, so I don't necessarily need a glowy primer, but if I am using a more matte foundation, then I will reach for this one just to give it an extra bit of glow. And then finally, kind of a different little number altogether, the Charlotte Tilbury UV Flawless Filter. Now, this is a primer. I typically only use this as a more classic makeup primer, foundation primer, when I'm on holiday, because I love the fact that it has that SPF 50 in there. If I'm going out for dinner, the sun is still up and I want to put makeup on, but I want an extra bit of SPF as well, then I will use this. But for the most part, I use this day to day as a sort of no makeup day. So if I'm going makeup free, I will either mix this with the tanning drops to even up my complexion with my body, or I will just go with this on its own, and it just gives me a gorgeous glow to the skin. It has a really subtle bit of color correcting, redness toning down, but for the most part it just gives me a gorgeous finish to my skin. It looks like I've just had a facial. My skin looks healthy and alive and awake, and you see that glow next to the Tom Ford, much glowier, but again it just looks like my skin has had a huge big drink of water. It feels so nice and refreshing as well. You know, I have rosacea, and in winter if I go from the freezing cold into the very warm swimming pool environment, if I'm watching my children's swimming lessons for example, my skin will get furious. If I'm not wearing makeup, which ironically sort of protects my skin from that feeling, then my face will go red raw and hot and sore. So having something like that on my skin actually just keeps my skin hydrated in that environment and stops it getting so angry. It kind of, I wanted to say it comes into its own in winter for that reason, but then it has a completely other functionality in summer where it helps me to just match up my face and body using those tanning drops, and it just keeps my skin looking great year round. So I don't necessarily use it as a primer like day to day, but it's just an amazing multitasker for me. Now moving on to one of the most asked about categories, and we've got a lot of movement here, okay? I'll tell you that. I think I wrote down on my paper when I was working out my top 3 in every category what products were in my top 3 last year that are also in this top 3 this year, and there's only one in the foundation category that is still here. That being said, this is one of the most sort of changeable categories. It really depends on my mood, the kind of makeup I'm reaching for, the time of year, etc., which of my favorite foundations will be in my top 3 rotation. And I have sort of 5 or 6 foundations that I absolutely adore and I absolutely love. So I've just chosen today 3 of those, and I love, you know, 5 or 6 probably just as much as these 3. These 3 are just like my current go-to top 3 out of those that I love. So the NARS and the Haus Labs are not in this top 3 today, but I would say I love them equally as much as these 3. I'm just using them less right now for different reasons. So let's not beat around the bush. You know my Tom Ford Shade and Illuminate. Let's hold it that way. You know my Tom Ford Shade Illuminate foundation was going to be in here. It's been my holy grail for many years. I've been through multiple bottles of this extortionately expensive foundation. For me, it's worth every penny. I always say to you, I never pay full price for it. I will always wait for a sale, but to me, it's worth every penny. The shade match, the coverage, how it corrects and evens out my skin tone without relying on just covering it. Like my skin still looks like skin. You can still see skin peeking through. It's got a medium coverage, but it's so natural and beautiful. The finish is just it for me. It's this gorgeous gleam and glow and fresh, youthful luminosity without being shiny or too much. It's just the sweet spot of everything that I love. A very like watery consistency as well, so it's very thin, very easy to keep it very natural. You don't need a lot, and it just evens everything out gorgeously while looking like you were born with the most angelic, perfect skin. A very surprising, for me at least, new entry in my favorite foundation rotation is the Dior foundation stick. And I say this is surprising because, as you guys know, if you're not new here, I don't like sticks. I don't like stick anything other than maybe contour. I don't love a stick. Stick foundations, stick bronzers, stick blushes, I typically just don't like them. This weaseled its little way into my heart despite my attempts to repel it. It's just so beautiful. I find it so easy to use. It glides across the skin. It's not hard work to sort of blend it out, which I find a lot of stick foundations being like heavier cream texture. You're sort of wiping it across and then it's a bit of work to buff it into the skin. This is not like that. It melts onto the skin. It blends out seamlessly. It has the perfect medium coverage. It is easy to build where you want it. It stays super natural, very flattering on texture, very smooth, similar sort of finish to the Tom Ford. It's got that fresh, juicy, healthy, hydrated skin quality to it. Wears beautifully. I absolutely love it. It went straight into my top drawer and I'm using it really frequently, which I never thought I would say about the stick foundation. But here we are saying it live. You heard it here first. It's actually not live, but it was when I said it, if that makes sense. And in third place, a foundation that has always been in my sort of top 5, but in recent months, I have been using it non-stop, really reaching for it a lot, and it's the Prada foundation. This is not a new love. I have loved it. It's been in my sort of, like I said, top 5 for a while, but I feel like it's just climbed a couple of places above those NARS Haus Labs Chanel #1s. It's kind of like taken one down one at a time lately. And I'm not really sure what it is. I feel like this is a bit less glowy than the Dior and the Tom Ford, but it still just has this gorgeous polished effect to it. When I was kind of going back and forth between my foundations every day, trying to narrow down this top 3, when I put this on my skin, that was my immediate thought, is this looks polished. It's got this gorgeous bit of light reflecting quality to it without it being glowy, dewy, radiant, especially. It's just a bit more light reflecting. It's very smooth, very flawless, which I always appreciate. You know, it doesn't sort of sink into smile lines. It doesn't accentuate the muzzle zone. It's just polished and it really does look very youthful. That's what I found about this. Really natural at the same time, but great coverage at the same time. I love the shades and the undertones, which is very hard for me to find. You can probably tell that today. Today I decided to give Armani Luminous Silk another go, and I don't know how well it will show on camera, and I tried my best to resolve the issues that I always have with that foundation. The undertones are just not doing it for me. I've tried about 6 or 7 shades of Armani Luminous Silk over the years, trying to force myself to like it as much as lots of people do. The undertones just don't work for me. The Prada undertones and the undertones from Dior and Tom Ford always are perfect for me, summer and winter, which really makes a difference for how much I love a foundation and how natural it can look, because it's not a completely different shade to your body as my face is today, thanks to Armani. But that is definitely a category where there are sort of 5 or 6 foundations like those I mentioned that all get rotated very, very frequently, that I love very, very much. The Charlotte Tilbury Beautiful Skin foundation, that's probably a close 4th, I'd say, and then the Chanel, NARS and Haus Labs are all right up there. I use all of those foundations very frequently and just depends on my mood at the moment. Those are the 3 that just really tickle my pickle. And so far we haven't had any discontinued products, so remember that when you get cross with me later. Next up, we're moving on to skin tints, tinted moisturizers, whatever you would like to call this category. Starting us off, the Lisa Eldridge Skin Tint. I feel like the 3 products that I'm going to talk about in this category, again, a bit like primers, they're all very different beasts. For me, Lisa Eldridge is the one that I sort of reach for when I want 5-minute makeup, when I want to do a really quick bit of something on the skin, maybe some brows, mascara, a bit of a lip oil, and pretty much that's it. It just is so seamless and skin-like. You never have to balance it out. You don't have to sort of do bronzer and blush. It just gives you an evenness to the skin while still seeing things like beauty marks. It's a light coverage. It's exactly what it claims to be, a skin tint. It's not a skin tint that's actually a foundation. It doesn't have SPF in it, so it's not sort of tricky in that way. You don't have to sort of worry about that if you react to SPF or it just messes with your skin. It's so easy to use, easy to control. I love the little dropper as well, because you can just get the perfect amount out that you want. Of course, Lisa is the queen of color theory, and the shades in this are just absolute genius, just like her foundation. She's so clever with undertones and with shades and color theory. You'll always get a perfect match in her complexion products. And I feel like actually I can wear like several of the shades of this seamless skin tint and it will look beautiful and perfect every time because it's just so seamless with the skin, so natural, wears very well, and it just has a gorgeous, healthy quality to the skin. Again, not dewy, but that luminous, fresh, I've just had a facial skin in a bottle. I absolutely love this one. Next up, the Chanel Le Beige Water Fresh Tint, the original chunkier one, not the skinny one that I do not like. This one is the best one, in my opinion. Now, this is quite different to the Lisa Eldridge in that it is very, very thin and absolute barely there coverage. I wouldn't even necessarily say it's coverage. It just takes away the edge for me from my redness. So if my redness is really out there thriving, and I don't want to go out with it just like shouting at everybody, but I also don't want to put makeup on necessarily, this is what I'll reach for. I'll just do a little bit of this and it will just tone down my redness without me needing to do anything else. It will just about even out the skin and leave my skin looking and feeling really nice and healthy and hydrated, but it doesn't have really coverage to speak of. It's just a very light evening out. You can build it up, but I don't. I just, you can see I've almost been through this bottle. I would definitely repurchase this. This is for my just want a little bit of a cheat on my skin days. I'm not going in with any other makeup, just a bit of this to tone down redness and even things out. It's beautiful. It feels so light and hydrating on the skin, and that's how it looks as well. Like it's completely invisible. You would never know I was wearing makeup. It just helps me cheat the system a little bit. And finally, we have the Hourglass Hydrating Skin Tint. So this has the most coverage out of the three in this category. And this is for those days where I want something that's quite light and natural, but I am going to wear other makeup. I'm going to go in with concealer and bronzer and all of that jazz, because this definitely looks the most coverage or the most makeup-y of the three. It doesn't look makeup-y, but of these three, you can tell I'm wearing something on my skin. It's so beautiful. It has this gorgeous radiance to it. It's got a sort of light, maybe it's looking down the corridor at medium coverage, a little bit more than the Lisa Eldridge, a lot more than the Chanel, and it just is so beautiful and natural. I love this so much. The shades, surprisingly, in this for Hourglass are actually really good for me. I really find them great for my undertones. Shade 7 is my favorite, and again I can use that shade kind of winter and summer because it doesn't have enough coverage that it won't work depending on where my skin tone is at. I take this everywhere with me whenever I travel because it's just so easy going. You know, you can just do a little bit of bronzer, this, maybe some concealer, and it will just look really beautiful, natural and easy, and it is easy and quick, which I love for me. So I don't really have a favorite out of those three. It just really depends what I want, how much other products I want to use and how much time I've got. Next up, we're moving on to concealer, and there is only one remaining item from last year's top three, which is surprising to me because I really feel like these two newcomers that I'm going to speak about have been in my life for a lot longer than they actually have. So the remaining repeat favorite from last year is the Huda Beauty. I love this concealer. It's got great coverage. It blends out beautifully, great shades, great undertones. It never creases on me. It wears beautifully. It's very flattering. I would say the exact same thing about all three of these concealers. That's just what I look for. I want full coverage, nothing showing through, no creasing, no aging me, not too heavy, not too radiant, because I feel like that's just unflattering, but not heavy and just flat looking either, because that will age me. So this is just the sweetest spot. I love this concealer. I use it frequently. I've been through a couple of them in my day, and it was unmatched for a long time until the Haus Labs came along, which, as you guys know, is my new holy grail. It's really neck and neck between these two. They're very, very close, very, very similar. I feel like the Haus Labs just maybe has a hair more coverage with less product. And I think maybe the doe foot is just a bit more precise, so it's easier to sort of get into the little nooks and crannies about your face with the Haus Labs. But otherwise, I love them very, very much. Very, very close, great coverage, no creasing, wear beautifully, don't age me, not too flat, not luminous. These two they're basically the same. There's real little between them. And then the third and the second newcomer in this category is the Guerlain Terracotta Concealer. This one, again, has fantastic coverage, just like these two. The doe foot is kind of small and stingy, so it doesn't deposit as much product, which is why I kind of prefer these two. But otherwise, again, great coverage, really long wearing, really smooth and really flattering on that textured under eye area. Doesn't crease, doesn't separate, doesn't budge throughout the day. These three are just all chef's kiss. And I would say that this does win the packaging category. It's gorgeous, gorgeous packaging. You also get 11.5 mils, so that's extra points. The Haus Labs is 7, quite stingy there. Gaga. And then the Huda Beauty has 9, so you know it's really neck and neck. Now we're moving on to powders, which is not my favorite category, as you know. I really only very rarely use a powder anywhere other than to set my concealer. So my absolute favorite under eye setting powder is the Guerlain Prisma Libre. I use the shade number 3 Voile Rosé, and this is the original formula. I have not tried the reformulated version. I have got a backup of the original formula and I'll be clinging on to it with my life. I use such a small amount. I've had this for months and months and been using it like literally the only thing that's gone on my face powder wise. And I feel like I've barely touched it. So I think I'm good for like the next 5 years. I think for me, this is a combination of the powder itself and the shade, because it just brightens my under eye beautifully. You know, if I ever wear a concealer, the shade is just either like maybe it matches my skin tone as opposed to being a brightening shade, and I can go in with that powder and it just lifts my whole face. It's so airbrushed, so smoothing, so flawless. It's beautiful, but it doesn't look powdery or heavy, and I don't feel it under my eyes, which is impressive. That's why it's my absolute holy grail. In second place, as far as my under eyes are concerned, is the Pat McGrath. Now, I have all 3 shades of, I think there's 4 shades, but I only use 3. The light, the pink, and the yellow. The yellow is probably my favourite for the under eyes, but I don't find it as brightening as the Givenchy. And the pink is too close to the white. I feel like if they'd come out with a pinker pink, it would have potentially challenged the Givenchy, but they didn't. They came out with, actually that just looks white with a hint of pink. So I use this every day to set my eyeshadow primer, which is typically concealer, and I love it for that purpose. It's so easy, it's so small, and because it's pressed, it's easy to control. It's not messy, which I love. I did used to adore this under my eyes, and in a pinch, I will still use it. It's just the Givenchy just edges it for me under my eyes because of the brightening quality, and the Pat McGrath powder, none of the shades do that quite so well for me as that shade of the Givenchy. But again, it's very smoothing, it's very light, it's very flattering, it doesn't feel heavy, it doesn't look heavy either. So if you can't get the original formulation of the Givenchy powder, the next best thing for me is the Pat McGrath. It's beautiful. I've been through like 3 of them, so not to be sniffed at. And finally in the powder category is the Charlotte Tilbury. Now I use this very rarely, and I pretty much just use it for either if I've used a very, very glowy, dewy foundation, I will use this just in the center of my face just to really set down and stop any oils coming through, or I will very rarely use it to touch up my makeup. If it's getting a bit shiny around here, I will go in with this powder. And I don't really do touch-ups on a regular basis, I just let whatever's happening happen, okay, and I just accept. But say I'm filming a video later in the day for some reason, or you know, maybe I did my makeup very early on and then I've had a really long day and I'm going out for dinner or drinks or something, and I just want to sort of slightly look less disheveled, again, that's when I will reach for this powder. And it's very rare, but when I do, I don't reach for anything else because it's so excellent at just taking shine away without caking up or bunching up or disturbing anything. You can literally just dab this in those slightly shiny areas and it will just airbrush everything. I love how smoothing it is in this area, how it controls oils, how it takes away any shine without looking like it's adding anything. It's just magical. I don't set my foundation really ever, but if I do, then this is the one that I reach for. Next up, we're going to talk about bronzers, and this may be, I've just realized I haven't turned my candles on and I'm horrified. Wait one moment. I'm so sorry you had to see that. It must have been horrific. Moving on from that tragic scene, we're going to talk about bronzers, and this is the first category where you may get slightly cross with me because one of, if not potentially, my all-time favorite bronzer is the Marc Jacobs. I can't even hold it up properly. It will just crumble to pieces because, as you can see, there's a giant hole in it and it's an absolute abhorrent mess. But this is the Tantastic bronzer. It's long been discontinued. It's gone. There's been rumours that Marc Jacobs are coming back, but who knows when and what they will present us with. We don't know. So I'm going to assume this is basically gone forever. But I flipping love this bronzer. It's so natural. It's so soft and beautiful on the skin. It has that gorgeous coconutty fragrance, and it's just, I mean, I will say this is definitely past its best. It's years old. Yonks. In fact, it's yonks old. And yet it's still so pretty and soft on the skin. It's definitely a little chunkier than it was when I first purchased it, but it's still so beautiful, so natural, so smooth, the perfect undertone. I'm so sad about it. I miss it so much. But as promised, I am going to provide the closest alternative to that Marc Jacobs bronzer that I have found, which is the YSL, and I flipping love, and you can't argue with the packaging of that, can you? If you're going to like replace the Marc Jacobs, then give us this kind of packaging and all is forgiven. This is the shade number 2. And again, this is very natural. It has that soft matte finish. You know, this is very much a buildable bronzer as opposed to one that starts off really pigmented and you have to blend out. So you can see it's not a dupe as far as the shade. It's definitely, the YSL is definitely warmer, which is one of the things that I flipping love about that Marc Jacobs bronzer. But it is as smooth and as natural, and the packaging is glorious. So it's not a dupe, but that is kind of my favorite, more matte bronzer if we take Marc Jacobs out of the equation. Next up, we have the Armani bronzer. I flipping love this. I now own 3 of the 4 shades, and I've been hunting for a less warm shade, and 110 is my winner. She's still warm, don't get me wrong, but slightly less warm than the other shades. Definitely quite a bit richer than these two, and it has that gorgeous glowy finish, which I love. The packaging is to die for. This is limited edition, but it's still around everywhere, so you're not allowed to shout at me about this one. You can only shout at me about the Marc Jacobs because that is fully gone many moons ago. And finally in this category, we have the RMS, which is fully permanently available, as is the YSL, I think. And this is probably the state of this bronzer. I'm ashamed, but you can tell how much I love it, can't you? So that's what counts. This is the shade Tan Lines, and this is potentially the glowiest bronzer I've ever seen in all of my days, and I flippin' love it. You know how much I like glow, and this is a glowy little number, and it's nice and neutral as well. Gorgeous bronzer on the skin, so beautiful. It doesn't look shimmery or like highlighter, it just looks fresh. And you could sort of do, you know, bronzer, highlight and blush in one with this because it's got that glow to the skin. It brings it back to life. It's so soft and pretty and it blends so beautifully. The packaging is not as luxurious, I won't lie to you, as the Armani or the YSL. It's very simple, but it does the job. And what's inside is just stunning. Here we have a cheeky little close-up for you. So at the top we have the forbidden Marc Jacobs, then the YSL in shade 2, then the Armani 110 and RMS tan lines. What a bronzy little number. Moving on to blush. Now, last year I included a Chanel blush, which was Alizane, and this year I'm including a different shade, but I love all of the Chanel blushes, to be honest. This one is Elegance, and I think this is just really, again, about my mood. Alizane is easier for me to use in summer when I'm more tanned, but in winter, Elegance is just it. It's that perfect peachy nude, goes with flipping everything. It's just unbeatable. The finish of these Chanel blushes, it just has my heart and soul. It's so elegant. The name is perfect. It's this soft, refined luminosity, so grown up. It never fights with anything, but it's got that hint of peachiness that I just really find flatters my undertones. And it's just gorgeous. I absolutely love Chanel blushes, the glowy ones in particular. This is right up there. It's been in my life for many years and I've loved her and I love her still. If there was a challenger to the Chanel blush finish, crown, throne, whichever you prefer, it's Hourglass Blushes. You guys know how flipping much I love me an Hourglass product. Just the glow on these blushes. Again, it's not like a highlighter, it's not a blush lighter. It's just gorgeous glow and luminosity. Possibly my favorite shade is At Night. This is another one that can be worn year round for me because it can build up so beautifully, which is another thing I love about Hourglass blushes, is you can apply them so softly and they're so unintimidating, even those that look really bright, because they start off with this gorgeous wash of colour. At Night is, again, it's a peachier nude. It can be a little richer if you want it to be, but it also can apply very softly to begin with. And then the third blush that I'm going to speak about is the blush I'm wearing today, which is Mood Exposure. So again, both ambient lighting blushes from Hourglass, but just very different shades. And actually Mood Exposure, you know, being a sort of mauvey shade, is not one that I love that often, but it's just the perfect tone. I love it so much. It really feels very wintry for some reason for me. So here we have Elegance At Night Mood Exposure. Do you see the glow on these? Delightful. Now I did only want to include singles today, like my favorite exact shade as opposed to a whole palette or a single shade coming out of a palette, but you know those Hourglass blush palettes, anything in any of them, and I'm a happy girl. Moving on to highlighter, and possibly, I think, in fact, probably, the category that you're going to get the most furious with me about. So I'm going to start off gently. I'm going to start off with the Gucci highlighter, the new Gucci highlighter in the shade Opal Pink, which is my favorite. I absolutely love this highlight. It's so pretty. You know, my kind of preference is something quite smooth, luminous, like I want to be glowing, but I don't want anything metallic. I don't want shimmer or sparkle. I don't want anything that's enhancing texture. This is my most gleaming highlighter that I love. It's looking very gleaming right now, but that is obviously a very heavy swatch, and I do find that as you blend this, it just melts and it has that sort of cream powder hybrid type of texture that as you sort of blend this into the skin, it just melts seamlessly and it just tones it down and it becomes this absolute perfect glossy finish that I absolutely love. The color is just perfect. I love the packaging. I've basically used it non-stop since I got it. That's fine because that one is readily available. It's new. I think it's permanent, but somebody correct me if I'm wrong, I beg you. The next one, you know what it is. I know you hate me already. I feel it through the lens. It's the Chanel Reve de Camelia, and it is long gone, okay? Forget about it, it's gone. If you missed it, it's gone, let it go, you have to. Well, maybe you should hold out a bit of hope. You never know, they may bring it back, but Chanel, they don't really do that, do they? When they say it's gone, especially for as long as this has been gone, I think it's gone. It's stunning. It is the most beautiful. You can see how much less sort of intense the luminosity is in comparison to the Gucci. This one is softer, prettier, and the special thing that we all rant and rave about when it comes to this highlighter is that it has like barely any base color, so it's very versatile as to what skin tones it will work for. So I can use this winter or summer and it never leaves the cast. It always melts like one in with my skin tone, and that's why it's so special. It's seamless and it's just so pretty. That is a full streak. I haven't blended that at all, and yet if I just do a couple of passes, it's like it's almost gone, and all we've got is the glow left. It's so stunning. But what I will say, although that has gone, okay, and I don't have a dupe for it, I don't have anything close to being as beautiful as that one is, Chanel release numerous highlighters every year, okay? And the next one I'm going to talk about is an example, because this is actually my favorite, of why you shouldn't worry about it. Don't worry about it. If you missed it, you missed it. They always have more coming, and they're always glorious. My all-time favorite highlighter is the Symbols highlighter in the shade Precious Coral. Did I get away with that, not knowing the name? I don't know. I don't think I was quick enough. Not only does it have that stunning camellia flower embossing or print, whatever you want to call it, shape, I don't know. It's even more sort of soft than the Reve de Camelia. It does have more colour to it. So this one for me, what I love so much about it is in winter, it's sort of it gives me a bit of a coral colour. So I can almost use this as a very subtle bit of blush as well as highlighter. And then in summer, it's just a gorgeous highlighter. It's the highlighter I'm wearing today. It's so soft and pretty and understated. I love the colour of it. It's just perfect for me. These three are just giving me life. So we have the Gucci Opal Pink at the top, and you can see it's significantly glowier than the other two, Reve de Camelia, and then the Symbols highlighter on the bottom. So the Symbols highlighter is available here in the UK quite easily. You can still get it, and you can get a lifetime supply because it's an entire 14 grams of highlighter. So you don't have to worry about it running out or being limited edition, because it's 14 grams of highlighter for some apparent reason. We don't know why. But if you are really desperate for Reve de Camelia, I don't have a dupe for it. It's undupable in my opinion. I'm so sorry about it. But we do always have hope that Chanel, like I said, they come out with numerous highlighters every year. They're always gorgeous. The next one is right around the corner. Don't panic. Now for contour, I think all three of these are the exact same three that were in my top 3 last year. So fair play to you, contours. First up, the Charlotte Tilbury Contour Wand. This like just did contour for me when I was a real makeup idiot. I'm slightly less of a makeup idiot these days. I've learned a lot along the way, but it's just so flipping easy to use. And when I first started out, this was one of my first like Charlotte Tilbury products, and I couldn't believe how easy it was. One, to just get it where you wanted it with that sponge tip, and two, how it just blended itself into my skin without blending away, so you've got nothing. It just blends so easily, even if you've done, you know, you've drawn everything on and then you've slowly worked your way around. Even when you get to the last line that you drew, it still blends seamlessly into the skin. It's so beautiful. I find it so easy to use. It's so natural. I'm never scared to use this. Whereas a lot of the time I'm terrified of contour because it's not something I do very frequently, and it can look extremely muddy if I'm not very careful. But the Charlotte Tilbury never does, because it's just so easy. The perfect color. It's not incredibly cool in comparison to some of the other contours that I'll talk about in a minute. So you've got that sort of margin for error. Next up, the Westman Atelier stick. This is the Biscuit shade, which is my favorite for contour, and this is, you can see the difference. This is a real crematorium grey. contour. It's not warm, it is exceptionally cool and very easy to blend, but it's a cream versus a liquid. So you will have to do a bit more effort, you will have to do a bit more, take a bit more care, a bit more elbow grease to blend this in, but the shade is perfect. And these are so beautiful, these Westman Atelier sticks, the blushes, highlighters, contours, bronzers, depending on which shade you use, are always absolutely beautiful. Such great quality, and it is a real contour shade. And finally, the Victoria Beckham Stylus. This shade, what shade is this? Do we have a name? Oh, Marble. This is very expensive and you get this tiny amount, but there's no denying the stylus is so clever. It's quite rich, as you can see. It's just so clever and it's so creamy. It feels a lot lighter and smoother than the Westman Atelier, which feels a lot, easy for you to say, feels a lot heavier to sort of blend and apply. This just glides across the skin, and that really skinny pencil essentially is so easy, and it really does blend as much as you want it to, and it wears very well as well, which a lot of cream contours don't. As you can tell, this is the one category where I actually prefer a cream to a powder. I just find it easier because you can literally just draw the lines where you want them and push them into the skin. There's no sort of being careful about product traveling as I have to be with a powder. So these are the three that do it for me. They're all very easy to use, very easy to blend. The Victoria Beckham is the perfect one if you want to contour your nose or contour like your eye area, because of that perfect shape, and it's so creamy as well. You don't have to apply a lot of pressure, you can be very careful, and it's just very easy for a beginner. So we have the Charlotte Tilbury Fair to Medium, we have the Westman Atelier Biscuit, and then we have the Victoria Beckham Marble. And those have been my top three contours for like a year now, and nothing has changed. And the final sort of base face skin category is setting spray. And again, I've got like three very different to each other entries. In this category. First up, the Lisa Eldridge. Now this I use, as this is not a setting spray, it's like a finishing spray. So it doesn't claim to extend the life of your makeup. What I use this for is when I've put a lot of product on my face and everything's looking a bit heavy, maybe a bit powdery, I will just soak myself in this, and it takes all my problems and cares away. It just melts everything into the skin. Any powderiness is gone. Everything sort of blends and becomes more skin-like, and it has the finest mist of any of the sprays I've ever used. So fine, you really can soak yourself without anything disturbing, without getting a single splodge or drop, or even feeling it touching your face. It just helps everything melt into the skin beautifully. It's gorgeous. As far as actually extending the life of my makeup, the only setting spray I've ever found really does that is the Charlotte Tilbury. It's unmatched. It has, again, a beautifully fine spray, so it can be used to melt your makeup into your face and take away the powderiness as well, but it will also set your makeup, and it extends makeup like nobody's business. It's so good at keeping your makeup looking fresh and freshly applied all day. If I know I'm going for a long day and I want my makeup to look good by the time I get in the door at the end of the day, I will not skip this, because I know I'll be shocked. It's so good. It's the only setting spray I've ever found really genuinely extends the life of my makeup, and I don't know what magic is in there, but I'd like to know. And then finally, the Tatcha Luminous Dewy Skin Mist. This I don't find extends the life of my makeup, but what it does do is give me a glow. So if I feel like I've gone in, I've used a heavier, more matte foundation than I typically enjoy, and whatever I put on my face is just not glowing, it's just looking a bit flat and heavy and cakey, boom, to the rescue. This is going to make everything look fresh and glowy and gleaming. It could be a bit too much if you put it on top of a glowy base. But if you need a bit of glow added into the skin, I absolutely love this. Again, it has that gorgeous light, airy spray that you almost feel like, have I just missed my face? Because it's so light and soft, but it really does a job if you're looking to add some glow back to the skin that has gone. It's gone, you can't find it. Tatcha will find it for you. Now we're moving on to the eyes, starting off with brows. I have nothing on my brows today because I've got a fresh brow lamination, so none of these are being shown to you in all their glory. And we've got a couple of new entries here. First up, the Rare Beauty Brow Gel. Without question, without doubt, the only brow gel I've ever found in all of my days that will actually keep my brows in place. No other brow gel can do it. I have to get my brows laminated because they're so flipping stubborn. And no brow gel has ever been able to keep them in place unless they're fully laminated. This one, even when my lamination has fully worn off, I start reaching for the Rare Beauty Brow Gel immediately because it can cope with my brows when they're wearing off and when it's fully worn off and get me to my next appointment. It's the only brow gel that has ever managed to do that. It's amazing. I've repurchased it several times. You do get a really stingy amount, 4.5 grams, double it. Please. That's the only bad thing I have to say about her. And then I have two brow pencils, not that exciting brow pencils, but both of these, the Huda Beauty was my holy grail for a very long time. I used the shade Brown Black. This is not that shade because I've actually run out and I haven't repurchased my shade because I prefer the Benefit. That is my favorite pencil. It's just, these both do really nice fine hair strokes, but the Huda Beauty it's a little more sort of, what's the word? Like smudgy, so it's not as crisp. I think the Benefit gives finer hair-like strokes, but it's crisper as well. They never smudge, they never start to sort of get a bit too thick or anything like that. And the shade is just perfect for me. I use shade number 5. I think that's the darkest, and it's just perfect. So the Benefit is on this side and then the Huda Beauty on this side. So the Huda Beauty is a bit lighter, so try to ignore that. But I think you can just see the Benefit strokes are just, they're crisper and finer, and they never budge, they never smudge. It gives me perfect hair-like strokes and you barely have to touch the skin. It's just my perfect brow pencil. I really never use another one, and I don't think it can be beaten. I didn't think the Huda could, but then I got proven wrong. So this video is so long, I'm so sorry. We're not even close to the end yet. I hope you bought a snack. It's going to take me a week to edit this. Next, we're talking eyeshadow palettes, another highly requested category. And I think we've got 2 new entries here, and one, I'm giving you a clue, that has survived from 2023, and it is of course Lisa Eldridge's Sorcery. I just don't think anyone will ever top this. I feel like you take one look at my eyeshadow and you know it's Sorcery. The formulas from Lisa are just absolutely stunning. They're so beautiful, so impactful. They blend so seamlessly and they just look stunning on the eye. But as I said earlier, she's such a genius when it comes to colors and tones and the shifts and just the colors, the shades that she has, particularly in this palette, because I feel like it's the most special. They just work together so beautifully. You look at this and you think this is such a colorful palette, and you know I'm an absolute color phobe. Like, I'm scared of color. I usually go for neutrals on my eyes. The other 2 palettes I'm going to talk about are a lot less scary for me, but somehow I can use this entire palette and not be scared of it. And it feels like, although it's like really green and lots of shifts going on, I feel like it's so wearable somehow, and only Lisa Eldridge can do that. It's just magical. Whenever I use this palette, I think, why did I ever use anything else? It's so special, so pretty, so different, exceptional. I've actually lied to you because I've realized that, of course, Mothership X was in last year as well. I mistook the X for a star, which is how I've been telling myself something was a new entry. So I'm so sorry, I'm confusing myself. This has been my favourite eyeshadow palette since it came out, more or less. This is, as you can see, compared to Lisa Eldridge Sorcery, this is much less scary. This is like me in a palette. It's got amazing impact and shadow like payoff and intense sparkle and shimmer and prettiness, but in Charlotte's comfort zone of shades. It's just so easygoing, yet off the scale because it's Pat McGrath and it's a mothership. The shimmers are, of course, outrageously beautiful and impactful and stunning. The mattes are her best ever. They're so buttery and creamy. They blend for weeks, not just for days, for weeks, I tell you. You're still there and it can cover your entire face, I'm sure. I haven't tried that, but I think it could. I just love everything about it. I would wear this day to day on the school run or on date night or on New Year's Eve. It's got something for everybody if you are like, if you're me, okay? It's got something for me for every day is what I'm saying. I'm obsessed with it. I've used it to death. I never get bored of it. Again, much like the Lisa Eldridge Sorcery, it's special. And every time I use it, I think, why did I use something else? What was I thinking? It's just gorgeous. And every time it gives me a lot of joy. Both of those palettes, peak joy when doing my makeup. And now for something extremely, extremely boring. It's Natasha Denona's I Need a Warm. I know this is nowhere near as exciting as these other two, but if you're me, it is, because it's so boring and that's just me at my heart. The other two palettes I've spoken about are me trying to be exciting and enjoying it. This is just actually where my heart lies, okay? These neutral shades, so easygoing, perfect. Go with every single makeup look, occasion, outfit that you're wearing, lipstick that you want to wear. I just don't have to think when it comes to this. I'm not an artistic person, I've realised over the years. I'm the least artistic person in my entire family. Both my children can paint and draw significantly better than I could ever dream of. But this makes me feel like I kind of know what I'm doing. It's so easy, it's so beginner friendly. You don't have to think, will that shade go there? Will that work with that colour? Will I get a look from these? It does the thinking for you. You can't go wrong. It's so easy. The formulas, Natasha, she just gets better every year with the formulas, even though they've always been great. They are so easy. The mattes are so creamy and buttery and easy to blend. The shimmers in here are her best. Really impactful shimmers that we love, that sort of wet look shine. It's gorgeous. I could use this day in, day out, and everybody else would get bored, but I don't think I would. I think I would be fine. Now let's talk about single shadows. We have some new entries in here. I think we've got 2 new entries, but let's talk about the Survivor from 2023 because she's back, so you don't get to be mad about this one this time. It's Charlotte Tilbury's Diamond Eyes from her Hypnotizing Pop Shots range. Last time I mentioned this, it was gone, but they have returned, so I don't feel worried about sharing this with you. This is my favorite sort of pop shade. If I'm going for like a bit of bronzer in the crease and a shimmer, and that's all I want to do, this is the shimmer shade that I reach for. I typically don't use it on its own because it needs a bit of something in the crease because it's so light, but if I just want a bit of shimmer and sparkle, it's so pretty. It's the perfect like champagne lid shade. It's gorgeous. I just love these pop shots and they're back, so you don't get to shout at me about that. You can shout at me about the highlighters instead, if you like. Now the next shadow is a true one and done, and this is Hourglass's Scattered Light in the shade Ray. I have numerous of these scattered lights. These are probably my favorite sort of shimmery popped single shadow formula, and Ray I think is my favorite shade. It actually toppled Dior's beige mitza, is that right? That was my favourite one and done for a long time. This from Hourglass has actually toppled it, the shade Ray, because it's just that bit more impactful when it comes to the shimmer and the sheen, and it's so twinkly and pretty, and because it has quite a neutral base, if you sort of blend this up into the crease, you'll get basically 2 for the price of 1. You'll get that sort of crease shade from the base as well as the shimmer for the lid. So this is a perfect one and done shadow. If I'm ever in a rush and I just want to whack one shadow but I want something shimmery, this is my number one. It's perfect. It works as a crease shade and a lid shade because of that base. and it's just so reflective and pretty. I could look at it all day. But my absolute favorite new one and done shadow for like every day are these Lisa Eldridge silk shadows. They are so amazing, and I never thought this would be a product I would like because it's a liquid shadow. They're matte. I don't typically like that sort of product. These have fully changed the game for me. My favorite shade is Talia, and it looks so frightening, I feel like, on first glance. And if you do like that, it looks so intense and terrifying. But if I'm in a rush, or if I just want to do something really easy, quick, don't want to mess around, I will literally put a dot of this on my eye and then just blend and blend and blend, and it gives you the most beautiful wash. And it's so easy. Literally a dot on the lid, and I'll blend it all over the mobile lid, up towards my brow, into the crease, and it will just look like this seamless, smoothest wash of colour. So pretty, so easy and wearable, and so flattering on mature eyes. I've also found by playing around with these lately that you can like mix them. So quite often what I'll do is a bit of Talia, and then I'll use one of the lighter shades to lighten it up a bit, or the deeper brown. I can't remember what the deep brown shade is called, but a bit of that and then a dot of another, and you can sort of blend them together to get the shade that you want, and it works beautifully. They're so easy and so flattering, and I feel like it looks like you've done a lot when you've literally done nothing. The shadow has done all of the genius for you. Here they are, nice and close up, very different to each other, but each have their place in my heart. Now for mascara, we've only got one new entry, so I don't think the first two will surprise you whatsoever. Charlotte Tilbury Pillow Talk Push-Up Lashes. This is my holy grail. I'm wearing it today. It's been my holy grail for a long time. I've gone through multiple tubes of it. It's undefeated. It's the perfect middle ground between impact and separation. It gives you lift, separation, and that spiky curl that I love, that sort of fanned out lash, but with impact. I love it on my lower lashes. It never steers me wrong. It's my absolute all-time favorite. Roller lash, a different kettle of fish altogether. So this is much more of a natural lash, nowhere near as impactful, but it's got such a pretty effect to it. It's not as dramatic and full fat lash as the Charlotte Tilbury, but it is for every day. It's so pretty. All of the sort of curl and lift to your lashes, that really wide awake, open, fanned out lash. Individual lashes, you keep a lot of your lashes with this one. You get to see your eyeshadow a lot, which I really like. It's not sort of so voluminous that you can't really see your eyeshadow. It really does have a lot of separation, fanned out, girly, feminine quality to it. These two have been favorites for a long time. They were both in my top 3 last year. The new entry shocked me, don't know about you, but it's Hourglass's Unlocked Instant Lash Extensions mascara. I have tried the other mascara from Hourglass, which I forget its name, which I didn't like, but this one I do like. It's quite similar to Roller Lash, but I feel like it's a bit more lengthening and maybe less lifting. So they're kind of neck and neck, but again, quite different to the Charlotte Tilbury. These two are more similar. Roller Lash is more lifting, Hourglass is more lengthening. The Charlotte Tilbury has much more impact than both of these. Both of these also, like the Charlotte Tilbury, work beautifully on my lower lashes. They're just gorgeous. These are kind of more everyday, girlier, lighter, more natural, and this is like kapow full-blown lashes. And the final eye category before we move on to lips is liners. All of these are pencil liners. My absolute favorite ever, undisputed champion of the world, is Lisa Eldridge's Ground Coffee. This is that sort of really rich, smoky brown shade that I've been talking about non-stop. Whenever I put this on, I just feel like, wow, I want to wear liner every day. And I'm not really an eyeliner girl. I rarely use eyeliner. And even with this existing, I forget to do it a lot of the time. It's just an extra step and I'm lazy. But whenever I use this, I feel like it ups my game so much with eyeshadow. It just suits me so much. I feel like it really makes my eye color pop, and it's soft and wearable. It doesn't age my eyes or look like too much because it's that softer brown as opposed to a black, and it's just bulletproof. On my eyes, this shocked me. When I first started testing these out, I was shocked. When I looked in the mirror at the end of the day and this was still in my waterline, I couldn't believe my eyes. It wears so well, so flipping well. It's the only eyeliner I've ever checked at the end of the day and it's still fully been there. It's unbelievable. From the shade to the wear time of it, it's the best eyeliner bar none. Another shade that I really love is the Charlotte Tilbury Pillow Talk liner. This is really pretty on my upper lid. I like to use this for like a winged liner if I'm doing a sort of pinkier or mauvey eye look and I don't want to go in with black or something quite harsh, then I will use this to do a wing with, and it's just, again, it's that sort of berry shade. It's softer, it's prettier, and it really goes so well with like a pinky eye look. Those are really the only pencil liners I ever use these days. And then the only like lash waterline brightening liner that I ever use is Charlotte Tilbury's Eye Cheat. It's just the perfect creamy shade. It's not like so stark that you look insane or like it looks white and it's very clearly eyeliner. This just brightens. You can barely see it. It's almost the exact color of my skin tone on my hand. So it's subtle, but it gives you that awakening, brightening effect without it just looking like you've put white in your waterline. Does that make sense? It's softer, more subtle, more natural, takes away any redness, any darkness there, but without anyone knowing that's what you did. So here we have the Lisa Eldridge Ground Coffee, Pillow Talk from Charlotte Tilbury, and Eye Cheat from Charlotte Tilbury. I'm absolutely begging Lisa Eldridge to come out with a waterline, like a brightening shade for your waterline, because I know it will be amazing. And the Eye Cheat does not wear as well as the Lisa Eldridge liners. So if Lisa Eldridge brings out a cream waterline brightening shade, it's over for you. I'm so sorry, I'm just saying. Okay guys, we're nearly there. We're on to lips. Hang in there, okay? I promise it's going to be worth it. Starting where we left off, we're starting with lip liners. I have three. Two are from Lisa Eldridge. Of course, Lisa has the best liner formula out there. This is the 1N shade from her like sculpting shade pencils. This is the liner I've got on today with a lipstick I'll talk about in a moment. This is just the perfect everyday liner shade. It just is perfect for my skin tone. It's the perfect amount. It's not too harsh of like a liner and a lipstick contrast with a lot of the nudes that I wear. It's just perfect and it's bulletproof. It will wear all day long, just like Affair. Now, Affair is one of my most loved lipstick shades from Lisa, and of course this goes perfectly with that. But it also goes perfectly with so many other nudes for like that everyday look. It's a bit sort of, I don't want to say like maybe peachier. 1N, it's like the perfect neutral shade. So it's not going to change anything. It just keeps everything neutral. Whereas Affair, it's a bit sort of almost like reddish undertone wise, like warmer brown. You can see next to each other, they're quite different undertone wise. So it just depends which lipstick I'm wearing it with, but those are probably my two most used liners. And then we have Charlotte Tilbury's Iconic Nude, and it's iconic for a reason. It kind of sits between the two, I would say, from Lisa Eldridge. Again, a lovely, creamy, smooth, gliding pencil. Such an excellent, versatile shade. Again, it will go, like 1N from Lisa, it will go with any nude lipstick whatsoever perfectly. So you can see actually 1N from Lisa and then Iconic Nude, they are very, very close, very similar in shade. I think just the Lisa Eldridge is a little bit more long wearing. I mean, I've literally been scrubbing and that Affair is still wanting to stay on. They're so long wearing. The Lisa Eldridge is definitely longer wearing, I would say, than the Charlotte Tilbury. 1N is my absolute favourite. So for lip product, I've split them into categories. We're going to do shiny lipsticks, glosses, and matte lipsticks. And I'm talking, of course, about the formula as opposed to the specific shade, because to pick like one specific shade is impossible. Okay, there's so many that I love, and I don't really have a standout shade that's my favorite. So I'm just going to talk about the 3 best formulas and share one of my favorite shades. I've slightly cheated, I can't lie to you. Let's start off with shiny lipsticks. You know, these have my heart. 3 of my all-time favorite lippies that we're going to talk about today. First up, the Warm Embraces from Lisa Eldridge. I'm wearing Sweet Fig today with that 1N liner. What's special about this? One, I just love this sort of caramel buttery nude shade, but the finish of these, it's like jelly-like. It's really so unique. They're so smooth and comfortable and light on the lips, but they just have this gorgeous jelly-like finish that is so different and special and so pretty to any other lipstick I've ever tried. I think Sweet Fig is my favorite shade in that formula. It's definitely my most worn because it is that classic easygoing nude, and it's just got, it's probably like a medium opacity. It's, you know, you can use it lightly and get it something a bit sheer, and you can build up to like what I've got now, and it'd be like a very pigmented sort of balmy amount of color. Just perfect, easygoing for every day. They permanently are in my handbag, and I flipping love them. A kind of similar in the ballpark type of product, the Dior Addicts. I've loved these for so long. I have dozens of them. One of my all-time favorites is Coral Delight. This was a limited edition shade, but I did notice it's back on the US website recently, so you may still be able to grab this. It's the prettiest, sort of softer, more wearable coral. Not too bright, not too much, not too summery, wearable year-round, beautiful. And I just find it so flattering. These are different in the finish. The Lisa, when I show you close up, you'll notice. The Lisa has that jelly-like finish to it. The Dior is a more sort of classic shine to it. And they start off so sheer, but you can really build them up as much as you want. I love the texture, the finish, how easygoing they are, how they can be really sheer or built up. The color offering from the Addicts is the best I've ever seen. There are so many shades to choose from. I've got dozens of them. I love them so much, and they keep bringing out more and more colors. And the selection is just, I've never seen anything like it. They have such an amazing color selection. I love everything about them. The Dior Addicts, I think, are my all-time favorite lip formula. They're definitely my most worn, I think. And then we have the YSL Candy Glazes. Shade number 4 is the one I've gone for. Now, these are much more opaque, much more pigmented than the other 2 shiny lipsticks that I've spoken about today. These have a very glossy, shiny finish, but with so much pigment. They're so intensely pigmented. It's absolutely amazing. Like literally that was like two swipes and kapow, intense. Pigment packs a punch, if you like a bit of alliteration. There's some for free. Very intense, gorgeous, again, jelly-like finish, but with a lot of pigmentation. So if I'm in the mood for something a bit more impactful and less soft on my lips, Candy Glazes, you can't go wrong. They're very thick. They're nowhere near as light as the Dior Addicts or the Lisa Warm Embraces. These are like full-on lipsticks. They feel heavier, they look more intense, a different kettle of fish, but I love them all. So we have the Warm Embrace Sweet Fig, we have Coral Delight from Dior, and then we have 04 from YSL in the Candy Glaze. And next up, let's talk about matte lipsticks. Now, it takes a very good matte lipstick to get into my heart because, you know, it's just typically not my preference. I'm a glowy girl, and especially when it comes to my lipsticks, I like a bit of shine. But if I do want something more matte, my all-time favorite formula are the Lisa Eldridge Velvets. They are unmatched. They are absolutely unbelievable. And being Lisa, as we've said, the shade offering is insane. Do you see that pigmentation? This is, of course, Cinnabar, which I believe to be the most special shade. It's so unique. There's just something about the way Lisa does undertones and shades and nuances. It's just unbelievable. And this is a shade that would have terrified me. But the moment I put it on, I felt like a different person. I felt like, oh yeah, I'm someone who would wear this lipstick because it's making me look so refined and elegant and sophisticated. And although it's so bold, it feels so wearable because she's so clever like that. I don't know how she does it, but she's a genius. And this is like no other lipstick. The amount of pigment, how smooth it is and how flattering, so long wearing, will make it through a 5-course meal with coffee and dessert. Absolutely unmatched. And I feel like a very underappreciated formula, but it's Charlotte Tilbury's Limitless Lucky Lips. These are so good, and I feel like no one ever talks about these. My favorite shade is Spice Bloom, and it's just a really nice everyday nude. These are very velvety, very smooth, and they sort of dry down and like set. So they don't transfer, they don't budge. By the way, the Lisa Eldridge, they don't transfer like a sort of more shiny lipstick do, but you might get sort of a slight bit of transfer on like a cup or something like that, but it's not like going everywhere. These, once they dry down and set, don't transfer. They are incredibly long wearing. They're very velvety. They're nowhere near as pigmented as the Lisa Eldridge, but they have a really good amount of pigment at the same time. And this great chic, skinny bullet that fits beautifully in a handbag if you're going out. Those are so like pillowy, is how I would describe the finish. And then finally, we have Pat McGrath's Matte Trance formula. Such an amazing formula in a similar shade. This is Fever Dream. Let's swatch that. Here, a much more sort of reddy brown though to the others. It's just, this is by luck, by chance that I've chosen these 3 shades that tend to be rather similar. And the Matte Trance from Pat McGrath, they have the same amount, really intense pigment off the bat as the Lisa Eldridge, but they're just not quite so soft. I feel like the Lisa Eldridge ones are creamier maybe, or smoother at least. Both beautiful, both amazingly pigmented. Lisa Eldridge's shades far outweigh the Pat McGrath, particularly because she just doesn't update them often enough, but both fantastic matte finishes that are comfortable, long wearing, don't make a mess, crisp application, fully opaque straight off the bat. You can't go wrong. So here we have Cinnabar, Spice Bloom, and Fever Dream from Pat McGrath. And we've made it to the final category. Against all odds, I thought I would have fallen asleep minutes ago, to be honest with you. I'm exhausted. But the final category is glosses. Now, no surprise, kicking us off, Hourglass Phantom Glossy Balms. I've been banging on about these since they arrived. My most worn shade, certainly, is the Trace shade, because it's just your everyday boring nude. And if you know nothing else about me, you'll know I flipping love a boring nude lip. These are so lovely on the lips. They do have that tingly plumping sensation, but they're not super, it's not really powerful and uncomfortable. It's just there, and they do make your lips look so juicy and full. They have a gorgeous amount of pigment, not too much, but enough that you don't need to wear them with a lipstick. They can kind of do both jobs, which I love. Really nice, non-sticky, gorgeous, mirror-like shine. I absolutely love it. But if you're looking for something more pigmented that literally will look like a lipstick and a gloss on top, the Lisa Eldridge glosses are unbelievable. My favorite shade is Sorcery. Again, because I'm a boring nude kind of girl, but with just literally one application, do you see how much more pigmented the shade is there? I've actually blended this out because I made an absolute mess. I'm used to this. Gloss swatches are so tricky to do neatly, aren't they? But these are definitely more pigmented. This is such a wearable shade. Let me tidy this up and pretend I'm a professional. There we go. This is how it always looked, I promise you. Such a wearable, like caramelly nude. No need for a lipstick underneath. It's got perfect amount of pigment, no stick, no clinginess. Gorgeous, gorgeous packaging, so beautiful, really nice, comfortable feel to the lips, hydrating, don't dry your lips out. And like I said, no need for a lipstick or a liner. They've got perfect pigmentation on their own. And at the other end of the spectrum, the Dior lip oils. And these are one of my, again, perfect, always in my handbag type of lip products. Because if I'm going like quite light makeup wise, but I just want something on my lips to stop them drying out and just to look pulled together, then I will always go for one of these, because I don't need to worry what shade it is. It doesn't need to match perfectly because they're very sheer. The color is very much barely there. This I think is my favorite shade. It's 62, which I think is Bronzed Glow. It doesn't have the name on it, but I'm pretty sure it's the Bronzed Glow shade, and it just goes with everything. If I've gone to the cinema and I've worn whatever makeup I've worn and I can't find anything in my handbag, I just know that I can whack any one of these on my lips and it will go, because they're not so pigmented that it has to be the right shade. They're so comfortable, they feel delightful on the lips, so shiny, I can't get enough. So here we have Hourglass Trace, Lisa Eldridge Sorcery, and Dior Lip Oil 62. And there you have it. My camera is about to give up on life. I'm going to go for a lie down and have a snack because I'm absolutely starving. I hope you survived it. Now you probably understand why I don't do these so frequently. Please let me know how surprising were these top threes for you. Did you know exactly what I was going to say before I said it? Did anything surprise you? Please let me know in the comments section down below. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, and I would love to see you in the next one. Otherwise, take care for now. Bye 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 bye.